Shabbat Shalom. This is Rabbi Lisa Malik from Temple Beth Am in Aberdeen, New Jersey. In an era of global uncertainty, record numbers of Jews seek to return home. This is the headline of an article by Deborah Feinblum that was published on June 8th, just last Monday, by the JNS, the Jewish News Syndicate, and it appeared in Jewish newspapers around the world this week. The article begins as follows, and I quote, "In a time of darkness, a time of pandemic, pandemonium, and power struggles, a thin ray of light can be seen in the Jewish world. The results are in. In May, the number of North Americans applying to make Aliyah was double than it was last year at this time. 814 this year making Aliyah versus 424 last year. In fact, last month was the biggest ever in the 19-year history of Nefesh B'Nefesh, the nonprofit organization that, with the help of the Israeli government and the Jewish Agency for Israel, has already shepherded some 60,000 North American Jews to new homes in Israel. According to Feinblum, applications for Aliyah this spring are breaking records as Jews in the diaspora look towards the state of Israel as a safe haven. Immigration to Israel is referred to as aliyah, which comes from the Hebrew verb that means to go up or ascend. Why? Because moving to Israel is considered to be a movement upwards in holiness. And that's why that very same word, aliyah, is used to describe the action of coming up to the bima, to recite blessings before and after a Torah reading. And it's called an aliyah even if the bima is not on an elevated platform. So if you have ever had the honor of approaching the Torah at Temple Beth Am during Thursday morning minyan to say the blessings before and after each of the 3 weekday Torah readings, that honor is still called an aliyah, even though there aren't any steps going up to the Torah reading table in our chapel. Now, in the days of the Beit HaMikdash, the temple in Jerusalem, there were steps near the temple's southern wall, steps that were ascended by those who offered sacrifices. And these steps have been excavated by archaeologists, enabling them to be ascended by tourists in contemporary times. In fact, on a Federation trip to Israel a few years ago, we did a pre-Kabbalat Shabbat service on these very steps. It's because of these steps and the physical act of going up that a group of Tehillim in the book of Psalms begin with the words Shir HaMa'alot, which literally means the songs, or the song is Shir, of those who ascend the steps. And one of these Shir HaMa'alot is Psalm 126 that we sing on Shabbat and holidays as an introduction to Birkat HaMazon, the grace after meals. In modern Hebrew, stairs are called madrigot, instead of the more poetic biblical term ma'alot. However, an elevator is known as ma'alit, which comes from the same root word as ma'alot. Ma'alit, ma'alot, aliyah, all come from the Hebrew verb la'alot, which means to go up, to ascend. They all stem from the same Hebrew root, the shoresh, consisting of the 3 Hebrew letters Ayin, Lamed, and Hey. So too does the title of this week's Torah portion, Beha'alotecha. In the Eitz Chaim Chumash, the word Beha'alotecha is translated as when you mount. But it can also be translated as when you bring up. And this word refers to the mounting of the lamps of the menorah by the Kohen Gadol, the high priest Aharon, as part of his final preparations for the use of the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle that served as the focal point of our ancestors' spiritual lives when they were wandering in the desert, before they entered the Promised Land, many years before the construction of the temple in Jerusalem. The menorah in the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash was different than the menorah that we light on Hanukkah. As you know, the Hanukkah menorah, also known as the Chanukiah, has 9 branches, consisting of 8 candle holders that are all the same height, and then an additional candle holder, the shamash, that is at a different height or position. Unlike the Hanukkah menorah, the menorah in the tabernacle and in the ancient temple consisted of a total of 7 branches. The Kohanim used to light this menorah every single evening. Nowadays, when we light a menorah, we only light it for 8 nights of the year, namely on the holiday of Hanukkah. In Masechet Shabbat, Daf 21b of the Babylonian Talmud, there is a machloket, a difference of opinion between the two Jewish sages, Hillel and Shammai. And the debate is about how we are supposed to light Hanukkah candles. According to Shammai, we are to light 8 candles the first night, and then decrease the number of candles lit on subsequent nights, so that each night the number of candles corresponds to the number of nights of Hanukkah that remain. Hillel, on the other hand, suggests that we start by lighting 1 candle on the first night and then work our way up as the holiday progresses, adding 1 additional candle every night until on the 8th night there are 8 candles. We, of course, follow the count up custom of Hillel rather than the count down custom of Shammai. And the reason given in the Talmud in support of Hillel's position is the phrase Maalin Ba-Kodesh ve'ein Moridin, which means we go up in matters of holiness and not down. Another manifestation of this halachic concept in the Talmud is in chapter 4 of Masechet Megillah on Daf 25b and 26a, the chapter known as Bnei Ha'ir. When selling a sacred item, the proceeds of the sale may only be used to purchase items that have a higher degree of sanctity. So, for example, you can sell an ark to buy a Torah cover, and you can sell a Torah cover to buy a Torah scroll, but you cannot sell a Torah scroll to buy a Torah cover or an ark. Why? Because Maalin Ba-Kodesh ve'ein Moridin. We go up in matters of holiness and not down. Yet another manifestation of this concept pertains to the stacking of books or papers. Some of you may recall seeing me rearranging books and papers on the bima from time to time. And this was not just an expression of my OCD tendencies, it was in fulfillment of the concept of Maalin Ba-Kodesh ve'ein Moridin. When books are stacked, you're always supposed to put the holiest book on top. Nothing should ever be put on top of a chumash, not even a prayer book, not even a siddur or a machzor. And you should never place any non-sacred books or papers, or your mail, on top of a chumash or a siddur. We are instructed to ascend in matters of holiness and not to descend. Maalin Ba-Kodesh ve'ein Moridin. This teaching also inspires us to constantly strive to increase the amount of holiness in our lives, being very careful not to decrease it. Of course, in order to be able to incorporate Kedusha in your life, you need to have a growth mindset. And to cultivate this mindset, here are 4 questions for you to ask yourself. 1, what are some steps that you can take this week to add holiness to your life? 2, in the coming months, what will you do to grow in spirit to ensure that your spiritual life is on the rise? 3, how can you behave in a way that reflects your inner holiness? And 4, what can you do to bring holiness into the world? In these next few months leading up to the high holidays, may we all strive to be Maalin Ba-Kodesh, seeking ways to allow holiness in our lives, seeking ways to grow in spiritual dimensions. And we can do this through prayer, study, and the observance of mitzvot that heighten our awareness of God and that motivate us to act on God's behalf in our world. If we allow ourselves to rise in holiness, our lives can be like the menorah, ever increasing in light. Can you hear it, son? Shabbat Shalom.